Drawing paws is like drawing hands. It is hard. Even the computer struggles with it. So I'm going to show you how to draw them in multiple angles, as well as give you some extra tips on how to make them look very nice every time. Because there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of existing paw tutorials on YouTube, I will not be doing the step-by-step tutorial approach, but rather focus on teaching you how to get better at drawing the paws in general. Especially since there are multiple ways of drawing them. As you can see, all of these are different, but they still look like paws. I will start with the 3/4 view. I rather lay down the foundations first, like you see me do here, instead of drawing the entire paw in one go. On the left side, I will show you a very simple way to draw a paw. It really is just following these guidelines I sketched out, without thinking too much about the anatomy of the paw itself. I used to draw them like this when I was just starting out. So this paw could work. And it's probably close to what you would get if you follow most of the paw tutorials out there. It looks very round, there's no sign of pressure, and there is not much muscle or bone structure shown. Now I will use that same foundation sketch on the right side to draw a paw, but with more details this time. When I start drawing a paw, I like to start with the front toes first, since these two parts are usually really close together. As you can see, the toes are not round at all, but a bit blocky. The front nails are facing each other a bit like they do on a real paw. And there's actual pressure on the paw pads. You can tell by the flatter bottom line. It is as if you were to press down your thumb on the table. It's the same for the paw pads. One of the biggest differences though is adding a specific bump up there. A wolf's leg needs to be able to bend, so to speak, in order for it to walk. This actually happens at the joint up there instead of the paw. Of course they can still bend the paw, but adding the specific bump above helps to make your wolf look believable, even if it's stylized. Now let's move on to the side view. As you can see, I am laying down the foundations before I start adding the details. In most paw tutorials you will see this basic triangle-like shape. It is really easy to draw and it captures the shapes of a paw. But of course, I wouldn't be me if I didn't draw another example right next to it, along with some tips. But first I will finish this simple paw by adding the rounded shapes. I am following the guidelines, by the way, but I will tell you why I would advise against it in just a minute. On the right side I try a different approach. I flatten the paw instead of using the triangle. The toes that I am drawing right now are more stretched out. Of course, I'm also adding that bump up there, which is called the carpus or carpal bone. Basically, it's a wrist. I also removed the roundness at the back of the leg, so it looks a bit slimmer. If you are struggling to add details to the limbs of your wolf, you can add really subtle fur. I explain the full technique of doing this in my more advanced fur tutorial. Now, why did I swap the triangle for a more flat-looking shape? Thing is, if you're trying to draw canines and want their paws to look like they actually belong to a wolf or a dog, it is best to stick with the basic shape for that. The example on the left looks much more like the paw of a cat. Their toes are shorter and rounder. I didn't realize this at first, but now that I do, I cannot unsee it. The last view I'm going to cover is the front angle. But if you're looking for more complex angles, you can check out the free reference sheet that I have drawn. Feel free to use it. When you are drawing the basic shapes in the front, keep in mind that the toes are not the same height, but relatively the same width from the direct front angle. So please do not give your canine 2 giant toes and 2 tiny ones. As you can see, it's the same story as before. Everything is kind of round in the first example. I used to draw paws like this. And if yours looks similar, it is fine if you want to keep yours rounded. But I prefer a more realistic shape to my stylized paws. Over on the right, I am actually sticking with the basic shapes this time, but extending the middle toes just a little bit, since they are closer to the viewer. The nails on these 2 toes are also facing each other a bit more, just like the first example in this video. Sometimes, however, it is best to double check if you didn't make the outer toes too small. You can see me correcting them right here. I keep adding the previous anatomy details to the leg, but be careful not to add too much detail. A wolf has muscles in their paw, just like you on top of your hand. When the paw is relaxed, they aren't very visible. You could even leave them out altogether. It is nice to include some traces of it though. You can do this by adding these subtle fur strokes I mentioned before, but make sure they follow the lines of the body. This is especially nice if you decide to remove the top liner of your toes. These fur lines manage to preserve some of the shapes, but if you were to erase them both, you lose the depth. Some of you, including me, like to draw their characters in an action pose. If the canine is using its paws, for example, for a grip, The muscles are more visible. The toes are also further apart, allowing you to see in between them. I love drawing the paws like this because it shows a bit more strength. When you draw them like this, you can also emphasize the pressure on the paw pads. Again, if you want to draw paws in complex perspective, I'd suggest looking up pictures or the reference sheet I have provided in the description. You can download it for free by joining our Discord server or signing up for free on Patreon. All of the existing and future reference sheets will now be uploaded there, just to keep my drive clean. Hopefully this tutorial helped you out a little bit. It was actually voted for by the community, which I have to give a huge shout out, by the way. I opened our Discord server earlier this week and you guys just kept on joining. I didn't even make an announcement in a YouTube video yet. It surprised me and it totally made my day. To anyone who is looking to meet other artists who draw wolves or share their art, feel free to join as well. The link is in the comments and description below. I'll see you guys soon. Bye!